So I'm just going to read the first little opening statement because this is important to me, and that's why I'm starting with it. Some thought has to go into keeping chickens. I mean, once you decide to keep chickens, you can't, it's just, chickens are wonderful creatures that are incredibly easy to keep and provide some of the best food you'll ever eat. But they're a responsibility, and there is no way around that. Since the chicken craze has come to pass, lots of chickens and roosters have been neglected and abandoned by those who didn't do their homework. I can give you guidelines to work with, but you must do your homework. So, with keeping chickens, there is a myriad of opinions, as there are with most things, and probably more. I mean, as you'll see with John and I, someone can ask a question, he and I are going to have totally different answers. The first thing I wanted to address is, and you guys read my mind, why do you want to get chickens? You know, and that's eggs and meat, or fertilizer, entertainment, pets, you know, whatever you think that you want to use them for.
Do you know their names?
Do they know their names?
Yeah.
Of course they do. They all jump in my lap when I call them. I question that myself. I'm not sure. Sometimes I think they do.
Sociable?
Oh yeah, they're all over my. I walk outside and they're all over my feet and stuff.
I sometimes call that comes running. So.
Yeah, well, that was different. We could tell that story in a bit.
Do they have fleas?
They get lice. But you'll see them dusting themselves. They'll find very sandy spots, and oftentimes they'll even seek out, if you have a fireplace, you know, leavings that you put in a pile someplace, they'll seek that out as well, and they'll dust themselves. They look sometimes like they're dying. They'll be on their backs like this.
We actually posted some pictures of our birds dusting, and somebody wrote, "How dare you put up dead birds on a website?" No, they were actually really enjoying it.
But it's nature's way of controlling lice. Chickens take care of most of their own needs. If you have the privilege and the honor of having them free ranged, you're very, very lucky, because then most of their needs are taken care of. Like oftentimes, well, we'll get into feed and stuff.
Do they give people lice?
Well, I suppose if you're, you know, prone to lice. I don't think so.
I've never had. My father had flock.
No, I would say no. I can't imagine. I've never heard of that.
Collect the eggs. We never got. I was surprised when you said that they had lice.
Yeah, we've never had any issues.
I've never heard of anybody having a problem with lice. I mean, if you've got canaries and parrots and all these things in the house, you're more likely to have a problem with them than any chicken, because. So now that you've decided why you want chickens, do some research on your breeds, as we were just talking a moment ago. And there's production birds, there's fancy birds, there's like I want to get a silkie from Dawn because they like to set on eggs rather than use an incubator. I'll have a silkie, and when she gets broody, which is when they get the urge to set on eggs, I can put some eggs under her and put her aside and say, okay, go for it, girlfriend. And I don't have to have her eggs under there. I'll put whoever I want. I can even get them from somebody else that has a breed that I might want to add to my flock. So
you're going to hatch them? Is that what you're implying?
Yes, to hatch. And everything just disappeared. So I don't know which we were up next.
While she has a second, just to go back to the lice, if I might add.
Thank you, Chance.
Lice are very, as with all animals, they're very host specific, they're very food source specific. The two types of lice that typically chickens will get are feather lice and leg mites. So the feather lice you'll typically find around the vent, around their little bum, and under the armpits. That you can see, you can kind of lift up their wings every now and then, and you'll check them out. Pretty much all chickens have lice. You're not going to get around that. It's just whether they're endemic or not. Are they out of check? Are they just a natural part of the chicken? But then there's also leg mites. Depending on how you maintain your coop, and how old they are, and your whole setup in terms of your breeds and things of that nature, you could get leg mites, and that's the one kind of mite that I typically have to deal with. And you'll notice that because the scales on the legs will start popping up, and they'll start becoming very inflamed.
Girls, how are your
and
legs?
That's very easy to. Luckily, chickens are so easy to maintain. So for that, again, I don't want to jump ahead of your lecture. Typical veggie oil. Any type of veggie oil, baby oil, rub it on the legs. It kills the mice, it suffocates them, and it goes away. Very easy to treat.
What kind of chicken is that one at the very end? The pretty one, looks like a hawk.
Well, first of all, they're all barnyard mixes.
They're all what?
Barnyard mixes. and she's half sweet potato Quechua. It's a South American land race that comes from the tribes of South America, and the other half is Olmec. It's another, so she's two tribal birds mixed together. Very wild type of bird. So, oh, got my thing back, now I know where I am. It's in writing right in front of me. The breeds. So one of the things I would suggest, if you can get access to an iPhone or an iPad or any Apple kind of thing, is they have Pickin' Chickens, and it's an app. It costs 99 cents or something. And if you have children, or if you're a child at heart, it's a ball, because you punch this, you know, do I want eggs, do I want meat, all this stuff, and then they bring up all the chickens that have what you put in, and there's a million. I mean, I don't know the mixtures and the combinations that you can put, and they have a fair selection of breeds, and it really gets you started. And somewhere here I've got a Murray McMurray catalog, and I would not suggest buying from them because they don't have a very good reputation, but they do send out a really good catalog, and so if you call and just get their catalog, they've got some great pictures and brief descriptions of the different breeds. So, you know, do some research on the breeds. And John, do you have anything to put in about breeds and researching breeds or anything?
What is that? I'm sorry.
Okay, we're in researching breeds. Any thoughts? Just
Yeah, know your bird. Know the bird.
you can go to friendswithfowl.com or Friends with Fowl on Facebook and ask just ask any question you want.
We have a community-based site where we welcome all discussions, and you know, we're not sponsored, but we definitely, you know, we like to keep everybody, you know, we don't know everything, but we have 2,000 people that are involved in our site, plus that are very, you know, involved in chicken keeping, and definitely could answer any questions. So the biggest thing with anything with chickens is do your research. And the one thing I found out about the poultry community is that it's a great community. And one thing I think that everybody falls victim of is once you start collecting chickens is when you get around people, you're just in your head saying, don't talk about chickens, don't talk about chickens. And because the community is very open, and you know, the best way to educate yourself is, you know, in some of the practices that we take, we learn from the old farmers, the people that have been doing it for generations. So, I mean, the biggest thing, you know, educating as far as, you know, we created a little list that we think are the top 10 things to consider when you think about keeping poultry. But it's basically, you know, education is key, and speaking to the, you know, community that are involved in it is definitely the way to go. And there's so many you know, I definitely want to push Friends with Fowl, but there's so many great sites that are out there.
Oh yeah,
you know,
Backyard Chickens.
Backyard Chickens is a great forum.
And then we can go into how many chickens do you want. We discussed this, some of us, earlier, and someone asked if one chicken would be fine. I don't think so personally. I think that would be, unless you have cats that like some kind of social life. I would say the minimum number of chickens, personally, my opinion, would be 3, because they need the social interaction. If you lose one, you've still got 2, and you do lose them. I mean, a hawk can come by, you know, or whatever. If their crop gets full of stuff and it starts gurgling, and all of a sudden you don't notice and they choke. I mean,
Question: how long do chickens usually live? I mean, if you let them die a natural death.
you have 5 or 6 years, 8 years maybe. I mean,
The numbers always seem to range between 3 years and up to 10 years. So,
but that's on the over 5 is rare. Most people,
Yeah,
5 years is kind of. Excuse me?
I was just going to ask that.
Are they always producing for that, the long
As they grow older, they produce less and less. And it depends on the breed. Like I said earlier about the Rhode Island Reds, if you get a production Rhode Island Red, you're going to be so impressed that first season. But the next season you may not get diddly, because they're bred to lay for a year and that's it. That's just what they're bred for, and they do marvelous things with genetics. But
If they're sociable with another breed of animal, will they give that other breed of animal, say like a dog, lice?
no, like you just said, they're host specific.
Very host specific.
They're host specific.
And even body part specific, because you'll even sometimes get mites around the eyes. Well, again, I'll wait till she goes.
No, I'm trying to get back up again. Go for it.
when I'm looking for chicken health, I'm really looking at the eyes. If they're alert, if they're clear, if they're not swollen, if their pupils are reacting to stimulus, you know, light, dark, things of that nature. If you kind of can make some noises and they kind of squint, you know you have a healthy chicken. If she's just like with any animal, if they're cleaning themselves, you know you have a healthy chicken. Their feces, if they look like normal chicken feces, they're usually okay. It also depends on what they eat. So the eyes are really important. But again, we'll talk about health in a little bit.
Okay, so that's how many chickens do you want? Personally, I am a single person. I eat at least 3 eggs a day, and then maybe I'll have them for more than one meal. So out of my 14 chickens, which are assorted breeds, I get from 9 to 14 eggs a day. And so I have enough to share with friends, and I have a couple of people who really want them and insist on paying for them because they know that I could help pay the grain and they can afford to pay for them, and they know they can't get these eggs in the store, which we'll come up to. I've got store eggs and my eggs, and we'll crack them open. You can see the difference.
Do they taste different?
Oh yeah. Oh, totally. Like you won't even know you're eating the same thing. It's like two worlds. Absolutely two worlds. It's.
Yeah, I actually had my wife kind of cover the eye. She fed me 2 different eggs, and it was very clear which egg was the fresh egg.
Yeah. So, so that's you know, like, and what I have here is you doing them just for yourself. Keep in mind that your new eggs will be so delicious that you will probably find yourself eating more eggs than you ever did in your life, and also. If oftentimes chickens don't lay all the time, they have to take a rest, and generally that's in the winter, but it depends on the age of the chicken. If a chicken's born in September or say August, you're going to have probably have a winter layer, because they're going to start laying in 6 months, and so they're all set, you know, and they're laying for the winter. I know that through experience. So if you're going to hatch and you want eggs all year round at different ages, it's nice to get them. But that, I'm going off the thing with that. The thing is you can freeze eggs. So during that flush time of eggs, when you've got so many eggs. I imagine so, but I can tell you what I know about it, and this is limited knowledge, but and anybody else can jump in and add more. But the simplest way to do it is just crack them into an ice cube tray, throw them in the freezer, pop them into a Ziploc, and when you thaw them out, you've got an egg that was just like it started, and you can do whatever you want with it. And the advantage of this is that you can separate your eggs and have some just whites and some just yolks. If you got these recipes that of me, I just eat them. But people who bake and stuff like to separate them, so they have the whites frozen and the yolks frozen, and you've got basically a fresh egg there. You can't tell the difference. It thaws out perfect. So from there we go into housing, which is very interesting because we have a couple of guys here that are really good at it.
Talk a little bit about the frozen eggs.
Yes.
When you defrost them, are you defrosting them on the counter?
Yeah, I just throw them on the counter when they're, you know, I mean, they don't take long, maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, it's defrosted. You know, so take them out in the morning before you know, first thing while you're getting your coffee ready, take your eggs out, throw them in a bowl, and by the time you know, and you'll figure it out. Eventually, you're going to see at the temperature of your house and everything else how long it takes to thaw out your particular eggs, but not long.
My girlfriend cooks a lot and does a lot of baking, and she uses Ziploc bags, which I don't recommend in terms of the whole sustainability bit, but she does it because she also has a small business where she does baking goods. So she'll separate her yolks and her eggs right into Ziploc bags, freezes them as such, and then when she needs to thaw them, she just does like a warm water bath, the whole bag, thaws them out. So it's because she's selling her products, she has to use certified kitchen, stuff like that. She chooses to use the bags.
Right.
The ice cube tray works awesome now, and of course no plastics.
So what do you do with the ice cube tray? They're frozen?
You pop them out.
It's like ice.
Now you got a bunch of eggy ice cube eggs.
So you can leave them in the freezer just in the ice cube tray?
If you want, but what the point of doing that is to pop them out, and then, you know, you fill up, and then you pop them into another container, be it a reusable, recyclable, Ziploc, whatever your needs are and what you have at hand, and then you freeze them all there, and they're loose. They're separate because they're all put in there frozen, so now you just take out what you need. Okay? Now chicken housing, my emphasis, and I'm going to let the boys go with this because Dawn is like chicken house king, But my emphasis is, and I had this when I was married, when I was young, back in the 70s, we got a bunch of chickens. We had meat chickens and we bought all the babies, and we had this brooder. A brooder is what you set your baby chickens up so they have enough heat, etc. Set the brooder up and everything, and then what? My husband wasn't Johnny on the spot, and we had chickens flying around the living room, and the feather dust gets really nasty, which is just what is created from the feathers growing, because you know that sheath that's on the feather, that comes out first, and as that breaks down, it makes a dust. So please start your coop before you get your chickens, or at least have the materials there. If you're like Dawn and you can whip chicken coops together like bada bing bada boom and you do it, that's a different story. But if you tend to be a little bit, you know, I think I'll do it tomorrow, and you procrastinate, have that chicken coop ready. So guys, any thoughts and any questions you want to give them on chicken coops? Why don't you come over here?
You know, one rule of thumb is, you have your chicken coop, and then you have your run. And your run is the area that you allow your chickens to, if this was hooked up to a coop, it would be considered a run. A good rule of thumb that I go by is I allow at least 10 square feet of area per chicken within the run. So if you have 10 chickens, 100 square foot run is going to be what you're going to need. Now, I like to go on the higher end. I would like to make sure that all my birds are very well taken care of and they're very comfortable. You know, our big thing is a healthy bird is a happy bird. A good rule of thumb for in the coop would be 2 to 3 square feet per bird. I go a little on the wide side, and I go 4 square feet per bird in our coops. Also, 3 chickens per nesting box. So if you're going to have laying birds, you're going to want to have at least 1 nesting box per every 3 chickens that you have.
These details that you've given us, are they on the handout?
No, that's why we have spaces on the handouts.
Yeah, they are not.
But I might add on the nesting box thing that I have 3 nesting boxes.
Visit us at Friends of Fowl on Facebook, or we'll have our new site launching, and we'd be more than happy. Yep, absolutely. I have one right here with your name on it.
One of the things about the nesting boxes that I have to throw in just from experience is the girls definitely going to fight over 1 box.
Yeah.
I've got only 3 boxes. I wish I had more, but you know, it's what works for me. And I have 14 chickens, but it's way sufficient. I mean, because they do eventually lay in the other 2 boxes, but rarely. I mean, there'll be 2 of them in the box at a time, and they're all lined up yelling at each other. Matter of fact, I found my rooster in it yesterday. I don't know what the heck he was doing, but so that's my 2 cents on that, on nesting boxes.
One thing I think that's really huge too about your coops is ventilation. Ventilation not only for fresh air, but also in the winter, a lot of condensation will build from their breathing, and you end up with a lot of frostbite problems if you don't have the proper ventilation within your coop.
And also, there'll be humidity produced if you're doing deep litter bedding, because of the moisture in the bedding,
And there's different methods to care for your coop, whether you want to be changing it every week, or Sue and I, what we do is what they call is a deep litter method, and what that is you just keep adding shavings into the existing bedding that's on the floor. The chickens will stir it up. Eventually, what it does, it essentially turns into a compost. And as you know, compost too also gets warm. So in the winter, you'll notice in our coops that the temperature inside the coops is a lot warmer than the outside, and that's got a lot to do with the deep litter method.
But don't ever be worried about warmth. I see so many, because my page too, people come to when they ask me about heating their chicken coops. Please don't try to heat a chicken coop.
For a lot of reasons. They're already prepared. They're prepared for cold weather, especially if you research the right breed, because some breeds do better in colder weather. But I just lost my train of thought here.
About heating chicken coops.
Yeah, the one thing is, if you supplement the heating, now they're going to become dependent on that. And if you do lose heating during a storm, then your birds are probably going to have a difficult time coping with the extreme change in temperature. The biggest reason not to heat it is fires. Once you add electricity to your coops, you've just added a potential for something very drastic and unfortunate, and something we all want to avoid, and that's your flock being
How
involved
many
in it.
last winter? We have a really wonderful community on Facebook, thousands of people, and everybody supports each other. It's the most
It is.
wonderful thing.
The poultry community is great.
And not just the poultry, the sustainability farmers,
Absolutely.
Agriculture.
Absolutely.
How many barns last year? It was
So unfortunate.
heartbreaking.
Yeah.
How many people
And the
lost
animals
all-
lost.
Oh, it was awful. I mean, at least 3 or 4. I mean,
Absolutely.
that doesn't seem like much in a whole country. Maybe Australia too, but putting out lamps, putting heat lamps out into their things.
And one thing I've noticed is that a lot of those people that when you look back after they had a fire and you're like, oh wow, and you research their page and you look back and you look at the pictures of their chickens and stuff in the background, you see this extension cord with, 90 different things plugged into it, and you're like, oh, well, no wonder why. We avoid it. And we had a very cold winter. We didn't lose one bird. They all did very well.
So I have a friend who has a chicken coop, and they put lights in there. Is that dangerous too?
Not if it's done proper. If it's
Yeah,
proper
and
wiring.
if you're doing it properly, it's people that overload. One thing, I don't even do lights either except for LEDs, and I don't do anything that's not battery. If I can't hit it with a button and not worry about it. LEDs, the way they have lighting now, I think that you can avoid running electricity to your coop.
Well, I think she did it so that she said that if the chickens
They'll extend the day hours so they'll keep laying. Yeah. My sister-in-law does the same thing.
Yeah,
but it doesn't
some
take
people
much of
do
a
that.
light. All they need to do is see a light. It doesn't have to be a bright coop. They just have to see some sort of source of lighting.
And another thing, when you're planning, this goes with the chicken coop building. If you're planning a chicken coop, plan it with lots of windows if you have that, if you're at 10, because that will give them a longer of the daylight, because they'll go into the coop at dusk. So all of a sudden they're in a dark place. So now they've cut off their daylight. But if they go into the coop at dusk, and I've got a greenhouse roof on part of my, it's like a, whatever, it's got like a glass roof. And so they'll get light right to the end of the day in the winter, so it extends it. They're not going into a cave, they're going into a well-lit place. And my chickens do have laid in the winter at various times.
Can you distinguish between, I hate to sound really ignorant here, between what a coop is versus what a nesting house is?
Well, as I know it's
Or are they
hard.
the same thing?
John mentioned that earlier, but can you just briefly give her the description? Coop and
Well, the nesting, you're talking like nesting boxes, or?
yeah, I guess.
I don't know.
Well, nesting boxes is what we're saying, and what that is all hens need a place to lay eggs. So you want to build them a
So
convenient
they don't
area.
just lay them.
Oh, they will, unless you build them a nesting box. If you set them up with a nesting box, and a lot of people, what they'll do is if they get, a pullet is a young female bird with under a year. So when you acquire pullets or whatever, you have your new chickens, a lot of people will either put golf balls, or you can buy like a faux egg and put it within the nesting box and get them knowing that's where to lay them. Now, when Sue was talking about a broody chicken, we have silkies that go broody, they just want to sit on eggs. We had one recently that was stealing the eggs from the nesting box and hiding it under some building materials in the backyard.
Way
Now,
far
she's
away.
only maybe 2 pounds. She was sitting on 23 eggs.
And she carried them about 40 feet.
So some of them might not pay attention to the nesting box and what it's for, but once once they know that it's there, they generally will go right to the nesting box. We
So
have
nesting is where they hatch.
Right.
nesting is where they lay their eggs. Right where they lay their eggs.
And
if
if
you
you-
leave them in there with the broody chicken, that's where they'll hatch them as well.
So the broody chicken, something is necessary to sit on them in order to hatch.
In order for the hatch, and they will, they'll still.
And you have to have a male. That's,
You have to have-
I know that
yeah.
seems kind of like duh, but
Yeah.
you only have hens. You're not gonna get chicks, of course.
And we have chickens that will actually take turns sitting on eggs. One will go out and eat and range a little bit and drink, and then the other one will sit on the eggs and they take turns.
And some roosters will too.
One problem we had recently, though, is we had one of our hens hatch a chick, and then all the other hens in the house wanted to hatch chicks, so they're all sitting in their nesting boxes, not laying eggs. So we have to go out there multiple times a day, kick them out, and say, "Look at this."
Okay, girls, let's go.
Yeah, pull the
Get to
chicks
work.
out of there. So, but to go back, you have your coop, and then you have your nesting box,
In your
either
coop.
within the coop or you attached to. The coop is just the housing
house.
for the chickens themselves.
And the yard is
one
the.
inside of the other.
You can. My larger coop, I have a large coop that's 10 by 12, and then we have almost like a shelving unit that is the nesting boxes. My smaller coops, because I want to maintain as much space within the coop itself, I have an external nesting box hooked onto the side of the coop, and I just walk out to the outside of the coop. I lift it up. I can see the chickens. You know, the eggs are in there now. So.
Personally, my coop and my nest boxes are on completely opposite sides of the yard. I have my coop in the far back by the compost pile on my like working end of the yard, and I have my nest box right outside my back door in like one of those like, old trash can sheds, like the little small trash can things that some houses have. My house has one on the back of it. We don't use it for trash cans. I have like an old apple box or cranberry box, little wooden box. In there with hay in it. I did that. I put in a hard-boiled egg for a couple days. The chickens get used to, oh, this is where we lay our eggs. So I don't even have to put my, you know, I can walk outside in my underwear and just reach right outside the door, grab the eggs, go right back in. I don't have to go all the way to the coop. And where my girls are free range, there's not an issue of like, oh, gotta let them out in time, because their eggs, depending on the breeds, it's not every 24 hours they're gonna lay an eggs. It's more like 26 to 30 hours, depending on the breed. Some could be 16 hours. So like, if you're not getting them at 8 a.m. every morning, so there's gonna be a little bit of variation. So where my girls are free range, they're able to kind of go to their box when they choose. Again, they're gonna fight over it. You know, I have 7 girls and they all use one box. So these are things that you'll find out. Your observations are gonna be your best teacher.
Can they do it in the middle of the night?
No.
I've had chickens on the roost pop an egg out.
Lay an egg, yes. I thought you meant like run to the box now.
Yep, it's laying there in the morning. And I use a banana box from Stop and Shop. You've had your hand up for about 40 minutes.
We have a shed that's 10 by 10 and we have 9 baby chicks that are 3 weeks old. So that's where my daughter's going to put them. As far as putting them in there, we could build a nest box in there and they're going to dedicate that shed to the chickens. So on the outside, I was worried about predators because it's in Lakeville, Freetown. Do we put like the entryway in up further with nothing off of it so that they can jump up and have a landing spot and then enter the birdhouse? Would that deter predators from coming
one thing,
in?
you know, I have some coops that are close to the ground, some that are off the ground. Having off the ground is going to be obviously a little better for many reasons, you know, pests like rodents.
Well, the opening too, it's a shed, so we have to put an opening
Yeah,
in.
the opening that you're going to have, though, you just want to make sure that that thing closes securely.
At
a
night.
latch.
Okay, so
A trap door.
like a little
Boom.
maybe?
We have a door that we enter our coops, and then we have a smaller door that is just specifically for them to enter and to exit the coop.
What height would you recommend? Like,
Well,
they'll
if
learn
it-
to jump up, right?
I have a coop that is 2 feet off the ground. I have a ramp that has like ladders that they walk up. I have another one that is maybe a foot off the ground. They just jump right in the hole.
Do you recommend we put them in? Right now they have a heating lamp because they're only 3 weeks.
Right.
Just a little, but should we put them in there now?
Well, the
Get 'em
fact that
used to
you're using the heating lamp, for me, I would say no.
They don't need it?
I wouldn't put them out there until they don't need a heating lamp.
When do they need a lamp?
6 weeks generally. And what you should do is,
how many degrees? 5
what you
degrees?
should do is when you hatch or you get chicks, every week you should drop 5 degrees until the temperature equals the outside temperature or close to.
Drop what, 5 degrees?
So when you start with a chick, say you hatch a chick and you have them, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to keep them around 95 to 100 degrees. After the first week, then you drop down to 90 degrees. On the second week, you go down to 85.
Close to that.
Well, they're already going. They're still going. So you're already in the safe zone.
Yeah.
But you want to get them dropped down. So how many weeks are they?
3, I think.
They're 3 weeks.
Maybe 4.
So you should already be 80
They're already
degrees,
outside
75. So you
in
let
the
them go
fire
out during the
pit.
day.
Doing their things in the fire pit.
Well, if they're 3 weeks, you know, my recommendation would say, you know, the weather's getting warm. I'd still wait 2 to 3 weeks.
But should we
But get the light
in
off
the
of them
house?
as soon.
Stop pulling the light away from them a little bit.
Okay.
But the thing is, I'm saying not
Do they
put
need
it.
to stay in our house or could
The
we
problem
put
is
it
if you're going to run a heat lamp out there, I would say not to do
I don't
it.
think that's a good idea.
We
Yeah.
don't like that.
You know, if
A lot of people
you're just
do.
going to suffer for a couple more weeks with them in the house, I would say just do it.
Oh, they're not a problem. Now.
Yeah, then I would say
Enjoy
do it.
'em.
Yeah, I don't. You know, once they go outside, it's like going off to college. They're never coming back.
And you recommend you handle them as much as possible?
I do.
We do
Because
too.
that's what I
Yeah.
told my daughter and the kid. They have 3 kids and they're always.
Oh yeah, very good.
We keep roosters, and we have a 3.5-year-old. So the more interaction we have with our chickens, you know, you got to understand, roosters are wired to do 2 things: protect and breed. So you can't expect a rooster not to be a rooster, but you can socialize enough with a rooster where certain tendencies will be, you know, muted a little bit. So they're not going to be this crazy aggressive rooster that's going to go after your kids.
Supposedly they have 9 hens. Well, no.
Oh, what is that? Is that what you?
Supposedly.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
so you have 10?
No, they have 9 chicks. And they said
Oh,
that
okay.
they don't.
Oh, really?
Thanks, honey.
Is their way of they can sex them, right? When they got them.
Well, certain breeds of sex links, some of them you could tell by feathering, like they'll have, secondary flight feathers. Unless you're a pro, the old timers will do vent sexing. The way you could tell is when they crow.
Or lay an egg.
Or lay an egg, whatever comes first.
If they're not all hens, they'll have roosters, and I don't think the neighbors would care.
Well, that's something that's fun to look up on the internet. There's a lot. Backyard Chickens has got a whole bunch of
That's
stuff
what my
about
father would do.
with the feather. That's what I've been doing.
Have a
Well, it
chicken
depends on the breed themselves. Like we have Dominiques. When we hatch the Dominiques, they're sex links, so you could tell the females because they have a white dot on their head, and their shanks on their legs. I think the females have their gray shanks. There's certain different breeds. I think I don't want to know. I don't know what breed it is, but some of them, and there's a lot, maybe Marans and stuff, they'll grow like a secondary feather, so they'll have 2 rows of feathers, so you can sex them that way.
Without a rooster?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
I've never had a rooster.
I don't think. Yeah, they don't want.
We free range, and we have 2 acres, and we have a substantial sized flock. For us, we need them because, well, we have our breeding. Obviously, we need them for that. But they also, you'd be surprised when you have, it'll be my wife, myself, and my son outside. The chickens will make one noise. We'll all stop what we're doing and look at the trees because they made this growl, and we know that there's a hawk or something around.
Yeah.
Or they'll start making some clucking. You're like, what? They're just fine. They're all eating, and you see all of us like looking.
But you learn their language.
You do, but the one thing the roosters will protect your flock.
For a quarter of an acre.
What's that?
She's got a fenced-in yard.
Yep.
Most of her acreage is a quarter of an acre fenced.
Right.
6 foot. So she was hoping that would be enough.
It should be.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it should be definitely enough.
Plenty.
The 6 feet though, they might get over, but you can clip their wings.
But-
And what it is, it's their first flight feather. You'll see. I would research it, not.
Yeah,
But
you can look it up.
yeah, but you'll be surprised they'll get over a 6 foot.
But although my niece has got just a picket fence like this with chicken wire over on one, the rest of the yard's fenced pretty good, but the one whole side, and she doesn't close her pen. She just leaves them
Well,
out
you
all
see
the
it
time.
out. Some of us are just 4 foot high. We don't have any coverage, and they're just content, so they just stay there.
So we're going to have to move on too because I sense that we're getting late here. Next, we're going to talk about feeding. Are you going to go conventional or organic? How are you going to get your food? Are you going to free range? I do organic because it's a personal choice. I steer away from GMOs and pesticides and all that stuff.
What do they eat?
Excuse me?
What do they eat?
They eat chicken food. You go to the grain store.
Chicken
The thing-
food.
Oh.
And well, they do eat chicken too. I mean, they're
really
very
do,
happy
yeah.
that they
They'll
love
eat
chicken.
everything.
Outside, you let them out. All your table scraps can go to them. Some people say don't feed avocados, don't feed oranges,
They
and
know what not to eat.
they're not going to eat the peel. They leave it, but they love the orange and they love the avocado, but they don't eat the other part. They're very smart. But I feed that scratch, a little bit of that, a scoop of that, for my I don't know how many chickens, these guys and the other 15. And then another scoop of layer pellets. Now these guys are on starter feed. So, and then they have 2 starter feeds, one for just growing up your chickens for eggs and things, and then there's the one that you bulk them up when you're raising the meat birds. It got more stuff in it, so but they do give you a choice in the grower starter crumbles. See, he wants to dust himself. See how he's laying there like he's dead?
Yeah, they'll lay in the sun like that. That's a very natural behavior.
He's looking. He'd be, if he was in the dust, he'd be flapping around and dusting his feathers.
Stretching out the old wings.
And but mine mostly live in the woods and stuff, and they get their diet from. Any questions about food and all of these things? If you have questions that. Go to his website, go to Friends with Fowl on Facebook, and just research.
No, just the ones they raise for meat chickens. I think it would be they get a piece, but no, every chicken I've ever met has been in pretty good shape and good health. So,
How much does it cost you? How much is the cost?
Well, the cost depends. Like I pay twice as much as somebody else because I feed organic. But I get more for my eggs, so but the people who eat those eggs are happy that they don't have any GMOs in their eggs, and they might have some GMOs because some of the things I'm throwing from my kitchen might not be organic, so maybe, but not likely because I don't
see. Depending on the size of the breed and stuff, but if you had say 6 to 8 chickens, you're probably looking, I would say, probably a 50-pound bag for 4 to 6 weeks. So you're looking $15 to $30, depending if you go organic or just straight.
A month.
For my
A month.
7,
Yeah, so $15 for conventional feed if you've got 6 to 8.
I would say so.
Depending on size. He's much better with numbers and stuff. And in organic, just double it. So they're not really expensive. And mine don't eat a lot because
They don't eat, especially this time of the year.
I put the grain. In winter, they gobble up a lot because they don't have. But I throw some grain out in the morning, and they look at me like, yeah, boom, they're off to the woods.
We don't even compost anymore. We used to compost heavily,
Yeah.
and now everything just goes to the chickens.
Yeah, no such thing. So, but I would suggest when you're thinking about getting your chickens and you're making plans, call around the feed stores, find out, decide first what you're going to feed, and then find the different places. You could list things on Feeds with Friends with Fowl, probably for local people.
Absolutely.
The different places. Nutrina is owned by Cargill, and Nancy can tell you about them. We don't want to buy anything from Cargill, right, Nancy?
Right.
Right, because they're human rights issues and all kinds of issues and everything. They're not a very nice company. They also own Agway. It's another company you do not want to give business to. They're not nice people. And Cargill. And they do have an organic product, and I was feeding it to my chickens, and I see a small print in the bottom of the bag, and I was heartbroken. Now, and we talked about bedding already, is whether or not you want to be cleaning your coop every day, every week, or every month, or very often, or deep bedding, but we kind of covered that. Any questions about that?
So how often are you switching it?
I do it every 6 months.
Yeah, and I, being a woman by myself and in a little bit not whatever, I keep my thing right there, my little pulley wagon, and at the door, and I couple of, a little bit here. When I feel good enough, I bring it out and I put it wherever it's going to go, and so it's an ongoing thing. I will have to have somebody come in at one point or another and hire somebody to get down to the bottom inside because, for the health of the wood and everything. But on the other hand, it seems to be working well, and it always did in the past. I kept dairy goats that way too, and it worked very well.
That will clean them every week.
My sister does it. It's ridiculous. It stinks in there when she does it that way.
I don't feel as though bedding is necessary. I barely ever use bedding, and if I do, it's in the winter time, just to make sure the little feet kind of stay warm, and it's kind of just that makes me feel good. I don't think the chickens absolutely need it. And again, whenever I speak, I'm just gonna say anything I say is just my opinion and what I have observed, and I recommend that you folks kind of trust your instincts and all these things and use your observations. I've found personally that when I use bedding, I'm more likely to get leg mites. I'm more likely to start to see the scales start to pop up. I start to see more of, toenail diseases and things of that nature. Just my observation. Just what I experience. Everybody has their own traits. Everybody has their own location, their setup, their breeds, a lot of variables. So use your own observations. That's just one that I've made.
And you're going to hear a lot of stuff on the internet.
I do not use bedding. Winter, summer, if I do use bedding, it's just to make myself feel good because it's about to snow. It's not...
In your bedding boxes you do.
And the nesting boxes. That's what he does. Everybody's going to do.
Yeah, you're going to find a lot
we
of.
use bedding. We haven't had any issues. But like you said, some people don't. It's just a matter of preference and what works for you.
Exactly.
And you're going to notice that. Especially being a new owner, there's going to be a little trial and error involved, and you're going to find out what works best, what doesn't.
We have a sawmill right down the road, and they have sawdust.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Do what's good for you. Chickens go out in the rain.
Oh yeah.
They will.
Yeah, they will.
They go out in the snow.
Oh yeah.
They will, yeah.
Not the first snow. First snow, they're like, what is that?
Chickens can actually pick up the cold virus that we get, and so they can actually catch colds. If you see that they have runny noses, their beaks will get wet. Oftentimes, if my girls are out and during a cold, steely rain, and then it's a cold night and they're in the coop, the next morning, almost without a doubt, at least one of them is going to have a runny nose. It's just a common cold. Just kind of like, keep things clean.
Give them some hot tea and honey.
You can make stuff like tetracycline.
You're joking, right?
Yes. Tetracycline's really safe.
Chickens take care of themselves.
Which
is just a general broad spectrum antibiotic. You can just add in their water.
Which is one thing that I wanted to bring up too is medical things and how to treat things. You can go pharmaceutical or you can go natural, or you can mix both. And like one of the things you're going to hear people trying to sell you probiotics, just like they do people. And I'm like scratching my head, like probiotics, chickens eat dirt. Now, the earth is teeming with wonderful probiotics, and when they eat the dirt, they've got all the probiotics. I give my chickens water kefir because I have it and I make it. Some people water kefir. And some people like to use the organic raw apple cider vinegar. But to me, buying probiotics to give to your chickens is like redundant.
They are selling you, bottom line. You're buying probiotics,
Yeah, we do all natural. We do pumpkin seeds and garlic, which will help against worms.
And now you do Artemisia absinthium, wormwood.
Yes, we have wormwood thanks to Sue.
Yeah, there's different herbs you can use, and I'll help him with all that stuff if you have questions and things on the website, because I do the herb thing. And these are only some of the questions. I mean, the topics that we've covered are brief. I mean, you could get a degree in chicken keeping if you wanted to. The internet is full of stuff. His website will be up in a week. He'll answer anything that you need. Backyard chickens is another one. I've got it listed here.
YouTube is a great one. I know it sounds kind of funny. I've learned a lot of what I know from YouTube.
And Grammy's Potager too.
You know, and it's okay to make mistakes.
I'm concerned about predators because I know there's fox living back there, and I have groundhogs.
Well, we're right in Westport, and we have predators from coyote to
groundhogs won't bother you.
And you just have to, when you have your chicken coop or whatever you're keeping them in, you just have to keep that in mind and just make sure that it's secure.
And pray a lot.
And if they're free ranging, I know with hawks, my chickens love going underneath things, underneath picnic tables, trampolines, fireplaces that are elevated. They want places to run underneath because, believe it or not, they're always looking up. When you see them tilt their heads like that, they're looking up because they're, hawks are a big issue.
And then they go underneath something.
They'll run underneath.
And it's amazing. They can tell the difference between a turkey, a vulture, and a red tail.
And then we've got a red-tailed hawk that's a resident, and my chickens don't bother. He just sits there and hangs around, and he doesn't bother them. They don't bother. Maybe he's waiting, but
for the right moment.
But he seems to get along well with the chickens.
How do you clean up your coop that you don't put any bedding in?
Me? I have a hoe. My coop is designed that it has a floor that doesn't have a rim on it, and that was a mistake I made, and it's something I learned from. My first coop had a rim like this one. Say there was a floor on the bottom of that, so I had to lift out the feces, if you will. So now I have the back end just drop right off, and I just have a garden hoe. And so I just go and I just kind of work it back, and then I also, and again, just my opinion, I use diatomaceous earth.
Which is a good thing to have.
DE is a wonderful, wonderful product that we have. Again, I agree very much with Sue here. I try to use as little products as possible. We don't need stuff. The beauty of chickens is they don't need much. But one thing I do recommend is having some veggie oil or veggie glycerin for leg mites, and then diatomaceous earth, food grade, because they'll dust it, it kills lice. They'll eat it, that's okay.
You've got ants in your house, it'll kill them.
DE is a great thing to have for chickens. It really is. I mean, for
people,
anything.
too.
For any homesteading bit, diatomaceous earth is one.
Have in your garden too?
Absolutely. It's one of those things I might even throw a little on myself. I don't know.
Yeah, it's home use, excellent home use for if you have invasion of ants or anything else. I had ants coming in, and I was like, the little ones. I didn't care, but it was getting a little ridiculous. I just put a little bit around where they were coming from. That was it. But it's a microscopic fossil of a water creature, and it's the skeleton of it, and the little edges are really, really sharp, like razor blades. So when a bug or anything crawls over it, it scratches it, and it dehydrates and dies. So if you shouldn't breathe it because it does have that little razor blade things, but it's great in the garden, just like bone meal or anything like that. It's a good calcium
source. And all of us here have eaten it, whether we know it or not. All of our grains have diatomaceous earth in it. All our General Mills products, all these things in the silos, when they're storing these grains, they're pouring in diatomaceous earth with it to keep the bugs down.
It's a food
so it's
supplement.
an edible thing. It's not going to hurt anybody here.
Now, one thing I'd like to say too is that we have our Friends with Fowl, we've been mentioning, our community Facebook page. We're also coming up with a new website that should be launched by the end of the week. But we have close to 2,500 followers as of now. And what we did, we asked everybody through trial and error, what were the 10 best points that they could come up with on if you're considering raising chickens. So if you didn't get one already, we put a list together from these 2,000 plus people that, you know, that helped us create this.
Survey,
yeah, a survey that helped us create this, you know, the 10 things to ponder if you're considering raising chickens. So it's not just from us, this is from a widespread, you know, group of people. So
I read
if you
that
didn't get
handout
one
today for the first time, and I've been doing this 6 years. I agree with everything on that.
And not bad, there's only one misspelling. It says hat instead of that. So we did all right.
Good boy.
Of course, I read that as soon as I left the printer.
Always. Yeah. One thing, just the last thing with DE, if you have a flock like me, I'm one of those people that I'll get phone calls. Hey, I have a chicken. I can't keep it anymore. Can you come deal with it? I'm like that guy that does the dirty deeds. You know, I get called up to butcher and things of that nature. But people call me up like, hey, I just can't keep this hen anymore. Can you take her? So of course, being the soft young, oh sure, I'll come take her. Before any chicken comes into my backyard, they get what I call battered. I'll take DE in my hands, I'll grab them underneath the wings, and I give her a good dusting. She doesn't really like it, you know, I'm kind of messing her up a little bit, but I really, really make sure I get DE all over her. She looks like a little piece of KFC when I'm done with her. But that's for me to limit most of her mite, so she's not introducing a huge mite population into my poop. So it's just it's a good idea, almost like a quarantine type feel.
Quarantine
almost
is
like
important.
for
a disinfection, if you will. And again, it doesn't get rid of all of them.
Yeah.
And again, I'm aiming for the vent and underneath the armpits. And I just batter them up before I throw them in, and then of course they shake it off and it goes away. But it's again hygiene.
Which brings us to fowl finder.
Yeah, one thing that we've noticed through our process of you know, farming chickens
Is
and
that the
whatever else
name
is.
of it?
Yeah, we have a sister site that is, well, it's a Facebook page that we've created called Fowl Finder. And what it is a lot of people, whether they're breeding and they're trying to get rid of chicks, or one thing you see a lot of, and people don't, you know, if you hatch, chances are 50% of those hatchings are going to be roosters. A lot of times it's difficult to find homes for these roosters. And just chickens in general, so we've created a page called Fowl Finder as well to help assist people locating a certain breed, talking with breeders, or, you know, rehoming, you know, their own birds. So.
An animal rescue
Homeless
league.
chickens, every bird should have a home.
Yeah. So that's a good service that they provide.
That's the one thing you got to understand too, is that if you get into, you know, owning chickens and you start raising from the chicks, chances are you're going to have roosters, and chances are when you try to give away that rooster, the majority of the time it's probably going to end up at somebody's pot.
Oh,
so
Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
some people get offended, but
some people get queasy.
you know, but it's the nature of the beast. So I mean,
Yeah, I mean, people will eat chicken 6 times a week that was taken from some place where it was abused and battered and
we don't personally
gross and
raise our birds to eat. Have I eaten some of our birds? Guilty. We have. It was probably the best chicken we ever had because it was the only chicken I've ever seen that what it was eating, how it was cared for, and you know, the life of the chicken. So
And if I
probably will eat a chicken again too, one of ours, if it happens.
I eat my roosters.
Yeah, one of my biggest learning opportunities with the chickens was realizing, and again, you know, Sue keeps kind of adding little plugs about the greater picture here. Yes, we're talking about chickens, but we're also talking about a lifestyle. We're talking about economics. We're talking about the system, the agricultural system at hand in the United States or in the Western world. When it comes to, you know, butchering chickens, I butchered my first one, and you know, it was a mess, and I had to learn. You know, no one taught me, kind of thing. YouTube, I recommend you YouTube it. But when I plucked the chicken and I got the chicken in my hand, I'm like, that is not a chicken. This is not what I find when I go to the store and I go buy a Purdue. A Purdue chicken does not look like a backyard chicken, typically. And I've done many, many, many of them. They don't look the same because the chicken that I have in my hand for my backyard is leaner. She looks more like what we would associate as a duck. They're not this big, round, robust thing that you get a 5-pound bird from Purdue that has probably never walked more than 3 feet in its life, that's come out of some CAFO, some large factory farm.
It is weeks old when it's
exactly 6 weeks.
Processed.
I mean, from cluck to plate, 6 weeks at one of these factory farms. So you start to learn that, wow, like when you raise them in your backyard, there's going to be some differences, or as you'll see soon with the eggs, there are differences and things that we
speaking of which,
we kind of get to learn. Wow, like, you know, again, when we were homesteaders and when America in its colonial period, you know, they weren't getting Purdue chickens, things were a little bit different.
this is a chicken egg from a chicken in the supermarket. Now, I'm going out on a limb here. Whenever I do this, I always feel like I don't know what's in here. Maybe I'll goof up. Maybe they'll both look the same. But trust me,
she voiced that concern to me, and I was like, I've seen your eggs, bring it.
Yeah, right. I was just like, my money's still on it.
Yeah.
Well, let's do this one first.
And you know what? I do a lot of traveling. You can even go in Mexico and get a beautiful egg like that. Anywhere in Italy. We were in Italy and all the Americans were like, what's wrong with these eggs? Because they're beautiful orange. I'm like, no.
They are. And you can't screw up scrambled
eggs.
eggs
The rest of the
with
world
fresh
doesn't
eggs.
have factory eggs like we get in the store here.
You notice it as soon as you crack it, just the shell. And
Yeah, the
Well, you
thickness
girls
of the
know
shell,
what
I
it
mean,
is,
a
right?
little bit.
it's amazing. Like you
Grace
always,
came up, bang, and it smashed the eggs.
Yeah.
it's nothing worse. They go to the store though, and you get something. You have a pocket full of eggs.
Yeah, right. It's funny, I've definitely done that. We're off, again, you go in the morning and you put your, again, it's your whole lifestyle. You know, we're talking about more than just chickens here. We'll go out and I'll put my chickens in my pockets, again, your barn coat. And, you know, I'm doing other things. I'm checking on the fish pond, and I also raise quails. I'm doing, you know, doing a bunch of different things. And all of a sudden, like, I'll go in the house and I'll go sit on the couch. And I'm like, what is that lump? Oh, chicken eggs. Like, you know, you kind of start, you gotta put them in their spots.
Oh, another thing too on feeding chickens there's a common question that he gets and I get on our pages is, can you feed eggs to a chicken? Now, you'll have a flush of eggs at certain times of the year. You just cook up those babies and you give them to your chickens, and they're going to be the happiest chickens in the world. And there's no problem about, you know, chickens eating. The only time a chicken's in my world, and whenever any of the three of us say anything, it's in our own opinions. It has nothing to do, it's an opinion. But what I've seen, and I raised chickens through the 70s, and then I've been raising them again now for 3 years. The thing is that chickens will not eat eggs. If they're hungry and starving and they don't get enough calcium and they're cooped up, they might eat eggs. But if you've got a chicken that's got enough room, is having a proper balanced diet, usually from free ranging is where you're going to get that, because this grain is not a balanced diet. In the wintertime, poor things, that's what they get to eat. Unless you grow food for your chickens, like pumpkins and kale and stuff. The thing is that they won't eat the eggs. That's an old wives' tale. Chickens will eat eggs only if they're they're deficient in minerals, or if an egg cracks, if they happen to roll them around, they'll eat that broken egg.
So you're talking about raw eggs, though, right?
Yeah, you can give your chickens raw eggs. I cook them.
Yeah, I'll just take the whole egg, throw a couple of them in the blender, shells and all, blend it up.
We actually have a blender where every time we crack an egg, the shell goes in the blender.
Yeah.
And it keeps going, and then at the end, we grind it all up to a powder, and we end up coating their treats with it and everything else, and giving some of that calcium back.
Yeah, I just crunch mine in my compost. It used to be the compost bowl.
Yeah,
now the chicken bowl.
thing.
When I do my egg, I make sure I crunch it up really good before it goes in there, so it's small pieces, and that goes out to their little spot where I put their food. I have a place. They know where it is too. They see me come with that bowl. They're ahead of me. They're over there waiting.
One of the biggest things too about chickens and the ownership of chickens, we have a fowl passion. The three of us do, obviously. Yes, you do. But the biggest thing that, I have a 3.5-year-old son, and what it's done for my son and my family is just amazing. My son gets to see the chicks hatch from birth, and then he sees the development of them. When the family comes over, and everybody gets together, it's almost it's therapeutic. It's like watching a fish tank. You watch all the birds hanging out in the yard, and
chickens are very trainable. I have many chickens at home. We use a plastic cup with scratch seed, and we just shake it around the yard, and they will literally chase us all around the yard until we drop it on the ground.
The second we leave the house with a bowl in our hands, that's it. They're all underfoot. You're just surrounded. We must look ridiculous to the neighbors because we have a flock of like 80 birds that will come flying around your legs, But as soon as they see the bowl come out, that's it. Or if they see my wife, they're like, oh, she's the one with the treats, and they're all over her butt.
Well, these guys here,
but it's
I think.
I think so, dude. I have one that my Sandy, we had talked about it earlier. And we have this one bird, Sandy. We named her after the storm because we had an incubator going. All the eggs had failed except for one, and during the power outage, we were out powered for I think 3 days. My wife Sue put it in her bra. We kept it along with her and brought it everywhere with her. The chicken ended up hatching, and
not in her bra.
but she not in the bra. But she ended up he ended up hatching, and he was the only chick, so I built a little stand for him on my computer desk because I work at home, and I had a little tray for him, and every day he'd hang out there, and then he got bigger, and I put him on my leg, he'd fall asleep and fall on the floor, but he's just amazing. I can actually walk right over, he'll actually come, he comes to me, I can pick him up, and he puts his head against me, and he'll fall asleep on me.
I found roosters to be far more personable. Again, I can't raise them, but when I lived in New York, I was able to raise them.
Why can't you raise them now?
Because I live in a city. I live in downtown New Bedford. I live in a very small plot of. I have a little small plot of land, so I can't. Out of respect for the neighbors, you know, I cannot.
Thing to consider. I have neighbors with chickens, and I love chickens. I used to raise chickens, but their chickens spend time digging up my mother's roses. The roosters come and they crawl outside our windows.
Yeah,
well, that's why I think if you're going to be a chicken, you have to be a responsible owner, and it's you know, it always helps when you drop off a dozen eggs at those neighbors that really live close, but you have to be responsible. You know, you can't be so, you know, self-absorbed that you're just worried about how you know, fare with them. You got to worry about the neighbors that you know, that aren't so appreciative of the birds. So we make sure that all of our birds stay within where we want them to be on our property.
Question.
Sure.
If you decide to go away for a couple of weeks, just load them up with food and you find a chicken.
If you're going to go away for a couple of weeks, then you better find somebody else that likes chickens, because the thing is, you want to be able to let them out during the day and at night. I mean, they have automatic doors. I mean, it depends how far you want to get into it. I won't put an automatic door on my coop because every day I like to know the health of my birds, and I like to know that the count of the birds stays the same. You know what I mean? So it's just, but we have, you know, we have 6 coops. We're planning on possibly going somewhere in September. So we have to kind of coordinate between everybody that we know to at least get them to go by and make sure that they take care of the birds for us.
But a couple of days, you can, if you can put a feeder and water out there, and they'll be fine.
And especially if you have a run that is secure, you know, like one thing, you know, when we talk about predators, you know, if you're going to build a run out of a wire, then you might want to dig a trench and put a little bit of the wire down into the ground. And one of the things to do with the wire, rather than go directly down, you want to bend it like an L, because predators dig down. If they hit a wire immediately, even if it's only 6 inches, they don't think move back and forth, they just think there's wire and they move on. So having secure from predators is going to be one of the biggest things of being able to leave your animal. So if they're secure, you know, for a couple of days, like Sue said, you might be all right. But if you're going to take away, you know, take off for 10 days, 2 weeks, I would definitely.
But you'll die. All that 2 days, you won't have any fun. You'll just be worried.
Yeah,
about
you'll
chickens.
be worried. But I'm telling you, if you don't have chickens already and you do, I'm telling you, there's that voice in your head that says, "Don't do it. Don't talk
I
about
don't want to
chickens."
go anywhere. You can ask my friends.
I could turn any conversation to a chicken conversation. But that's the thing of it, you know, and I never expected it, you know. We got into chickens because, you know, her family had them, and we have friends that had them, but we were building a fence in the yard to keep my son from entering the street. And during that time, we have somebody close to us that has a little farm, and somebody found ducks in front of our house, and they thought they were ours. But once my 3-year-old saw them, I knew that that was the day that we were going to start getting involved with poultry. We had considered it, but we started off with 8 birds. We're up to 80 plus now.
Could you define chicken math for these people? Because they're going to see
chicken math is so different for so many people. You know, people say, how many birds should I own? And, you know, if you visit our page, we actually have written it out. We come up with a chicken math where, you know, chicks don't count as chickens. Yeah. Bantams only count as half of a chicken, so the smaller birds, and the list goes on and on. So it depends, you know. We have our own creative way to figure out what the math of chickens is. So
yeah, because you're always making excuses to get more.
You know, people ask, well, how many chickens you have? And in your head, you're like, all right, well, I have 6 I'm not going to tell them about the 2 roosters I have.
I'll tell anybody.
And I'm not going to tell them about the chicks I have in the brood.
My aren't part of it. They just kind of like sit there. They don't do much.
Right, so it's definitely, you know, I really love what it's done for the family. Like I said, I like the community that it ends up, you know, you get introduced into as well. And there's nothing like, you know, going back with you know, the first egg you collect is no different than the 100 egg. It's just as exciting.
Pick up that egg, it's just.
And my son has the habit. He goes out there, he grabs an egg, and he gives it a kiss.
That goes back to the neighbor bit, though. I do a bit of traveling, and so when I leave, it's funny. It spreads like radiation. When one house on the block gets chickens, I'm willing to bet within a year another house is going to get them because they see the benefits vastly outweigh the.
It's like when somebody starts exercising. That's how I compare it to. Somebody sees you like, wow, you working out, and they're like, oh, I should start working out, and then they start working out, and the next person.
So
it's the same thing with chickens.
So it's easy. So like the neighborhood cohesion just grows like exponentially when chickens are introduced. So now I have 3 other people on my street who never before even thought of owning chickens now have been doing it for about a year or so. I call them, hey, I'm going away for the weekend. Can you come by and just throw some scratch down for the girls? That's it. Once a day, throw them down.
The eggs are yours.
Yeah, and Julie, take the eggs. Making that neighbor connection is very, very huge. It's almost as important as looking for disease. It really is. No chicken owner should be isolated.
And it's really great because, like he said, we have a neighbor in the back that I'm pretty friendly with, and he's been very interested in it. And now he's starting to work on the wife, and he's clearing out the little area, and he's working on it. And you know, we give him fresh eggs. So then the neighbor behind him came over the other day, and she's thinking about chickens and wants to see the chickens and asks about them, and then we give her some fresh eggs. I see her the next morning, she's like, my husband was up at 10 o'clock at night making eggs and looking at coops online. He wants to come over and talk to you. Bring them on over.
When you get eggs, like say you go out and you collect them, do you put them in the fridge?
We don't.
I don't.
We don't wash them, and we don't even put them in the fridge.
Yeah.
They're viable. They stay viable for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Even if they have, like sometimes they'll have some like feces on them. When eggs are laid, they're naturally laid with a very thin, waxy called cuticle. It's like a little waxy layer around the eggs because eggshells are porous. They can breathe, and so that natural waxy membrane makes them impervious to bacteria. And so even if they look like they're covered in poop, it's okay. Leave them until you crack them. And mine, again, they say...
You can wash it before you crack it.
Exactly, you can. Again, most of the time they're clean. If you have a clean nest box, most of the time you're going to get clean eggs.
Yeah, but sometimes
you don't wash them until you're cracking them because it's that coating that
I have my own little personal saying where I say each day is like a fresh egg. Every once in a while you come across one with a little poo on it, but tomorrow's another egg.
I like that. I like that.
Do you date your eggs so that you know that these were Mondays?
I have a system, yeah.
We do, but we eat eggs so much that what we have, overabundance of, we end up selling. So, our house personally, I don't see us having eggs last more than 3 or 4 days.
I have a system with my boxes. I put them in the front box when that's full. Like the next, that goes back, and then I fill this. So the ones at that end are the oldest ones, and these.
That's what Sue does. She rotates them. All the fresh eggs are up in the front.
Stuff. You rotate it in the refrigerator.
The shelf life is debated. People debate different how long is shelf life. Typically, it's measured in months. They say weeks to months. Farm fresh eggs. And
learn how to read an egg cart, and you'd be surprised how old those eggs are from a store.
Are you going to talk about P numbers?
The
P number on the side of the cartons?
I can't hear you.
Store eggs do because they're washed.
They're washed and refrigerated. As soon as you put that egg in the refrigerator, you're killing it. It's a viable living thing. It can be hatched. It's viability.
But it has to have had a rooster.
Right. If it's got a rooster, I'm sorry. I just think chicken. But the thing is if that's why a lot of people don't want I've got people that want poop on their eggs because they feel like they're getting cheated if they don't have poop on their eggs. But yeah, you don't. Although I gotta say, summertime, if it gets into the 90s and stuff, keep them in a cool place.
Yeah, use your judgment. If it's baking hot in your house, put them in the basement. Like me, I have a root cellar in my basement. Put them in the basement. Real quick, I just want to touch upon this, is the P number. Again, we're doing a little bit of contrast here, compare and contrast with store-bought versus backyard. All eggs, when you buy them in the store, come with a P number on the side of the carton. That's a number mandated by the USDA. There's a certain amount of time from when the egg is put into this carton to when it has to be on that shelf and sold. There's a certain amount of time, I don't know what it is. There is no legislation as to when the egg was laid to when it goes in the carton. So when you buy store-bought eggs, God knows how old it is. Yes, you can candle them and look at the little air sack in the bottom, and if it's bigger than a quarter, you shouldn't eat it.
Or you can put them in the water, see if they float.
If it floats, you don't eat it. There are different ways of doing it. Of course, agribusiness has done, they spend a lot of money figuring out how they can get it into our hands quickly. So typically it's okay, but backyard eggs are far fresher, and you're able to hold on to them a long time. Whereas store-bought, I always look at that P number, and it's on the Julian calendar, so it's like 1 out of 365. So if right now it's December 20th, and I see P number 005, I'm not eating those eggs, bottom line. Because they were put in the carton in January. And typically they're no more than like a month old. You'll look at the P number, and like that one was like 190, and right now we're I don't even know what day we're on in the year, because 1 through 365. So they're probably pretty fresh if that carton was from store-bought egg.
It's an old carton.
Oh, so it's probably from last year. So again, you can kind of look at different things like that. Do your research. You can find, some people care, some people don't. It's all up to you. Yeah, 1 through 365, and so you can look at three numbers. If you have, P005, and usually it's a long number. It's the first three numbers. If it's a low number and you're late in the year, I'm not eating them eggs.
And one thing I discovered too, and if you get into, you get your fresh eggs and stuff, I found out a little trick. There's one thing that's really difficult about fresh eggs when you boil them, is getting the shell off.
Yeah.
Well, I figured it out.
Well, I figured it out too. How did you figure it out?
I poke a hole in the shell.
Oh, I used to do that. I got an easier way.
Because you peel them, they just tear apart. But then if you put them in the refrigerator for 3 days, then they come up. But when I want an egg, I don't want to wait 3 days. Almost like you used to poach them. I take a little thumbtack and I put a little hole in it.
In the old days, they used to have a thing like a syringe that was made. They're antiques. You can get them, and it's like a syringe, and you can poke a hole, and you do it in the sack end. You put it in the fat end of the chicken, and you put a hole. But even easier than that, the easiest way in the world is to steam your eggs. You put this much water in the bottom, put your eggs in, bring them to a boil. Turn them down so they're not going to burn or anything. Cook them for whatever length of time you cook your eggs. I do mine in 10 minutes. Take them out, throw them in the ice water. You can take an egg that's still warm from the chicken, cook them that way, and take that egg and open it, and the skin just slips right off.
Yeah, the cold purge is how.
Yeah, that helps as well. Because there's nothing worse than getting a fresh egg, trying to peel it, and you're like, it looks like I'm having yolk.
Yeah, it looks like I'm having yolk, exactly.
And what my sister taught me, I think she found that on Backyard Chickens, but she found that someplace.
Well, what I found was Tyler, my son, ended up cracking one of the eggs on a rock. And I was like, I'm not wasting this. I threw it in the pot. And I was like, wow, this thing peeled so easy. So I've been just poking holes in it.
I just learned, I've been doing this for years, and I just learned that for the first time, the whole poking the hole in the air end. I know that. We're all learning today.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, the steaming, I've been poking holes for 50 years, but the steaming, one less thing to do.
That's just one thing that's always like, how do you peel a fresh egg?
No, that was to me like, I found out the most important thing I've ever found out in my life.
Oh yeah, that we were too. I was
so
Sue was trying everything. She's baking them. She's doing everything. Yeah, I finally threw the cracked egg in there. I was like, yes.
Because I always I'd take the end off and I put a little teaspoon in there.
And try to get it around. Yeah, like peeling a kiwi.
They were never pretty though.
Yeah, no. Crack the egg or let them sit for 3 days in the fridge.
Thank you all for coming to SOS Work Wednesday workshops.
And if you didn't get one of these, please do.
And Ken for coming and helping out.
Very welcome.
And
then I'll be around for a couple.
And next week's workshop is
rain barrels, I think, right?
Is rain barrels.
Yeah,
so there's going to be, and that'll be in room in here E101.
To raise healthy chickens, visit the website in the description box below for more guidelines.